Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and the Fool.
Okay, so there's this concept called scientific racism, which is one of those things where, if you're talking to a biologist and they talk about, anti-mouse donkey proteins or something like that, or receptors, anti-mouse donkey receptors, you don't know what they're talking about, but you know that there's, it's some biological thing you don't know about, right?
Yeah.
And so you're like, yeah, biologists talk about things I don't know. That's a specific example I have because I was talking to a biologist when I was about 17, and they were talking about their anti-mouse donkey inhibitors they were doing in a study or something. And I was like, what is that? And it's, I guess there's a standardized, because they're crazy, there's a standardized mouse cell or something that they inject into a donkey cell, and it has a good response for testing certain, something like that. Anyways.
Yeah.
You know that you don't know it. I know that I don't know it.
Yeah.
It's just this thing in biology. But then there's things you don't know.
Yeah.
But then there's things you don't know how to ask the questions to figure out what you don't know.
Yes.
And I think that is scientific.
I was trying to have a conversation with a friend of mine.
Yeah.
He's, I think he has a master's in biochemistry.
Yeah.
He's training to be a doctor who specializes in blood because he's a hemophiliac.
Yeah.
So he's specializing to become a blood doctor.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask him some questions. And so we were talking, I asked him these questions, and he gave me a response. He gave me a very good response. I said, can you please dumb it down for me? I don't understand this. So I was like, this thing.
Yeah.
Can you dumb it down again? It's like, okay. And then he did something, and it's like, okay, I barely understood that. So then I can build on everything else you said.
But sometimes you just have so little grounding.
Yeah.
You can't even, you were able to say, can you at least dumb it down, right? Yeah. But sometimes there's situations where you can't even ask, so basically what happened was I was reading Mein Kampf, and there's a bunch of sections where Hitler talks about how Aryans are the superior race.
Yeah.
And he talks about it as if it's a fact. He isn't... He's not giving any arguments for why Aryans are superior. He's not giving any arguments for why other races are inferior. He's just saying, look, every civilization, and we talked about this on, I think it was just the episode that just came out.
Yeah, I had a very hard time titling that and coming up with an image, so I was sneaky.
Yeah, well, couldn't we, I got it. It's 3 different races.
Yes.
But you couldn't call it racial differences? That wasn't allowed, or?
I didn't want to.
Fair enough. So anyways, I talked about in that episode, I didn't understand. I was like, what about Egypt and the Chinese Empire and the South American empires? How would you say that Aryans are the ones that have only ever been the great civilizations? Yeah. And how can you say every creative endeavor was created by the Aryans? And I didn't even know what questions to ask because it's weird. I tried to look it up online, right? I was like, why does Hitler think Aryans are superior? It's such a hard question to ask because, especially the internet search is useless these days. But also, most people who talk about Hitler will just say, well, he's a racist, duh. Yeah. And it's because today the concept of racism is that you think you're superior and the others are inferior and you hate them because they're different from you, right? Yeah. Or they scare you because they're different from you. And that was not Hitler's kind of racism. He wasn't scared of people because they were different from him, and he didn't hate them because they were different from him. The only group he really hated was the Jews and the French and the Slavs. But beyond that, he didn't really hate other races. He thought they were inferior, but he didn't really hate them. He talked about in the news, there was always, using his words, there was always Negro lawyers that were getting brought up in the news by the Jewish press. And he said basically the Jews were training, they were trained monkeys that they put in suits. Yeah. That's how Hitler viewed it. He's like, this is an abomination. It's cruel to these African gentlemen. Yeah. As he didn't use that phrase, but it's cruel to these African gentlemen because you're essentially put in a situation they're totally unprepared for, and you've just got them to memorize by rote all the things they're supposed to say. Yeah. But they're not actually real creative, great lawyers. They can never be great. You're just parading them around as if you put a dog in clothes, basically. Yeah. And Hitler, like we talked about before, he was a huge animal lover, but he did believe animals were below humans, and they needed to be given discipline and training and everything like that. So he was, but I didn't even know how to look it up. How do you look up, why does Hitler think race mixing is the worst thing ever? He talks about it being an abomination, right? Yeah. And he uses one example of the donkey and the mule having a what are those things called? Oh, sorry, no, a donkey and a horse having a mule,
or the other one. Yeah. Which are really cool.
And he was saying how even nature abhors the mixing clearly because the mule is infertile. Nature is trying to stop the abomination. But then I was confused because it's by that logic, if a mixed race couple is infertile, then fair enough. but they're not, right? Like a mixed race kid is not infertile. They can still have kids. But he was treating the races like they're different species.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what questions to ask because I was like, what is this? And I think the place you can start, where you can start asking questions, is this thing called scientific racism, which has been so thoroughly expunged from the common lexicon that it's like you don't even hear about it anymore. And so, like all bad things, it started with the French. So basically what happened was the French nobility
looked at the English and went, ew.
No, they looked at their own people and went, ew.
Oh, and so a French aristocracy is different than a French peasant?
Yeah, so basically the French nobility had... So Americans are the main people keeping this alive right now. There's a lot of, making fun of nobility in media that doesn't correspond to reality, ever, right? Like, you look at someone like the British kings. They were just normal dudes who would dress up for portrait day, basically.
Yeah.
They would talk with their people, they'd sit on the hall, they would wear normal clothes. I mean, they were kings, and some of them...
Their clothing might be more comfortable.
Yeah, and some of them, like Charles II, actually thought he was better than everyone else because God had chosen him.
But some of them, like Richard Lionheart's, were nutcases who gave their murderer a pouch of gold.
Yeah, but that's just more an eccentric guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, Ulrich von Liechtenstein was also very eccentric, and he wasn't a king.
And Charles the Hammer wasn't eccentric at all.
Yeah. But they were, Alexander was buddies with the companions, they were all his friends. They're just like bosses, right? Like the kings, basically. The Chinese emperors, they're a bit different. They were, above everyone else.
Yeah.
But the stereotype of the out-of-touch nobility who thinks they're superior to everyone by virtue of their birth and nothing else, and doesn't actually do anything useful, is basically based on the French aristocracy. Because most nobles were actually quite useful and had earned their position. And even a lot of the French nobles, not the aristocracy, but the French nobles, had actually gotten there because they or their ancestors were heroes. Like, they were knights or they were...
There's a brilliant story I learned about. It's called Modern History Channel.
Yeah.
He's a YouTuber. He's a reenactor, knight. He rides horses and stuff. He does studies.
Yeah.
Looks into history. He does recreations to test things. One of the things he talked about was British peasantry.
Yeah.
And this was a very cool thing so let's say you're a landed serf.
Yeah.
And you get sick, you get a horrible cold or something, and you can't work. And your lord is out riding, he sees you not working in the field, and he goes, oh, something's up with that. He goes home, he tells his wife about it, and his wife gets up and she goes to your home and knocks on the door. This is the lady of your land.
Yeah.
Like a countess, let's say.
Yeah.
Knocks on your door and you're like, oh, I'm sick right now, sorry, I can't be out working.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you poor dear. And she goes back home, gets a bunch of supplies, brings them to your house. She makes soup at your fireplace, like your hearth.
Yeah.
She feeds it to you. She looks after you. She will mix a mess and give it to you. She makes sure you're better.
Yeah.
Because she's looking after you. That's her job. And she's...
And you're one of her people. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she takes care of you and it's like, oh, you're finally better. Okay, good. You could look at it cynically, like she wants you to be able to work.
Yeah.
But it's literally her job is to look after you.
And in the English case, and also the Catholic case, you have, so I guess the Protestant and the English case, you have the Magna Carta, and then you have the Pope, who were basically saying, look, God is the supreme authority, not you. So everyone is equal before God.
Yeah.
And then the Magna Carta said no one is above the law in the UK.
Yeah.
And so, but it's interesting because the French have this history of Louis the 14th, who was now Louis the 14th was very careful to say he wasn't better than Jesus.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of pictures of him done with Jesus. But he's like, Jesus is my buddy. He's cooler than me. But I'm I'm an inch below Jesus. But I'm not quite there.
An inch below Jesus, which is 10 feet taller than the rest of you.
Yeah. That's how Louis the 14th did it.
Yeah.
But then you have Napoleon, who went a step further. And when he was crowned emperor, he crowned himself. He didn't let the Pope crown him. So he said, there is no authority that I am beholden to, not even God. And so it seems to be a French thing.
Well, I mean, you could say that King Henry said, I'm better than God.
Start a new church.
When he became Protestant.
Yeah.
But that case what's interesting is there's the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Yeah.
And he has the authority to crown the king.
Yeah.
And so basically what that was, even though the king's the head of the Protestant church, is the king basically said, I want a divorce, you're not letting me have it. I'm making my own church with blackjack and hookers.
Yeah, literally.
But I'm not so arrogant as to say it's all me, I'm better than God. It's just I don't think the Pope's up to it.
Yeah, and I don't think the Pope's representing him properly or
Yeah,
something.
so we'll have the bishops and the archbishop and me.
So what happened anyways was the French aristocracy, which is more the family of the king.
Yeah.
And I don't know the time period of this. I think it was 1700s, but it might have been much later.
Yeah.
It might have been, or earlier even. It might have been like Louis XIV's time, because I think what happened was nobles were like everyone else.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, not nobles. I think I'm getting this distinction right. Nobles are very powerful families that have favor from the crown.
Yeah.
Aristocracy are relatives of the king, I think is how that distinction works.
Yeah.
So they're actually different. Like in France, they had the king, they had the nobles, and they had the common folk.
Yeah.
And the nobles were had the most power in France, and then Louis XIV came along and took all the power of the nobles and put it into the king.
Yeah, and you could buy titles in France.
Yeah, well, in France, it was, you could be a noble of the sword, a noble of the...
purse?
Yeah, something like that. Or you could just have, like, family going way back. Or you could be related to the king.
Yeah.
And I think that... so the French guys that got there, like, well, I'm son of Roland. It's like, well, Roland earned that. And the reward, actually, if you think about it, it's interesting because you're not rewarding them for virtue of their birth, right?
Yeah.
You're rewarding Roland for being such a hero. You're like, look, you did such a great service to France that your grandchildren's grandchildren will still be revered and looked after.
Yeah.
Like, that's a reward to Roland that transcends time, essentially.
Yeah.
You're like, you are I confer you immortality for defeating the Moors, basically.
Yeah.
The Moors are actually part of this, which is good coincidence because I brought them up, not on purpose. But so basically, there was some French aristocracy philosopher who wanted to prove, because there was some rabble getting roused, who were saying, we're not different from you, we could be better rulers.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, I need some scientific proof that this isn't true, because the French are very rational.
Yeah.
So he said, well, look, clearly Spain is a disaster, right? Yeah. Spain's a mess. And what is different from Spain from the rest of Europe? Well, they've got a bunch of dark-skinned people in Spain because they have that Moorish influence.
Yeah.
So the Moors are bad. And if you look at the nobility in France, the lighter-skinned people are the nobility, and the darker-skinned people are the peasants. So I think they're actually two different races.
Isn't the case in France it was quite literally who was in the sunlight and like wearing powders or something?
Well, what I'm wondering now, because that's what I was told growing up, right? But I'm wondering if that's not true, and it was actually a slight genetic variance.
Because I do happen to know that the majority...
Which is the problem with this information being suppressed.
Well, so the majority of the nobility...
Oh, I need to say this, actually, as a disclaimer. This information is not suppressed. It's not censored. You can find it on Wikipedia. You can, it's very mainstream. It's just nobody talks about it.
Yeah. So the majority of nobility and upper class people in Britain are Saxons.
Yeah.
Lower class people and farmers in Britain are Welsh and Anglos.
Yeah, and Scottish and Picts and all that.
Yeah, Scots and Picts. But like most of the aristocracy are Saxons. And then there are a bunch of Anglo-Saxons who are like the mix of the two. But if you sort of like look at upper class people and the aristocracy, they are all Saxons.
Yeah.
And there's this whole joke about the phenotypical difference in appearance between them. And it's like, look at this grug man, Anglo, with like his thick brow and like his farmer background and his lower class accent. Yeah. And then the superior upper class, like Saxon. And then the joke comes from you show what their jobs are. Yeah. And like the Saxon works at a chip store and the grug man, Anglo's a lawyer.
Yeah.
Like that, I mean, it's a joke.
Yeah. If, you're saying like the Chad versus the...
Yeah.
So I was looking at it as part of some Nazi propaganda, and they literally did like, the Chad meme?
Yeah.
Like it looks almost identical to that, and it's like the Aryan, and then it shows, they got like a circus performer or something, it's like this African guy, that just has the most ridiculous face you can imagine, and it's like, the soy, like African, or basically. Yeah. I kind of want to make that the thumbnail, but I don't know what would happen.
We're going to start competing with Zoomer Historian.
Yeah. Altist or whatever?
No, he's called Zoomer Historian. Oh. And it's like, here's my 5th essay on why Hitler did nothing wrong.
Oh, and is he joking around with that, or?
No.
Oh, jeez.
No, okay. He actually has like essays on
Wow.
World War II and stuff. And
okay, so that's I have to look into that. That's interesting. But I disagree. I think Hitler did things wrong. But
well, I think the best stance anyone's had on Hitler is Carl Benjamin.
Yeah.
which is, I don't care he lost, he's a loser.
Yeah, well, I think that would...
And I think that's actually a brilliant argument.
Well, that's what I've tried to use against, like, neo-Nazis. Like, I've chatted with some, and I was like, your ideology leads to losing. Like, what's the point? It's a bad idea. Even if you believe in the virtues it professes, you need a better ideology because this one loses.
Yeah.
Like, even... You don't even have to argue them on their points. It's just like, this ideology doesn't work.
Yeah.
It lost. It will always lose. It's self-defeating.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. So, because the only way it could work is if you somehow kill everyone else. And you're not going to because there's more of them than there are of you.
Yeah.
And even then, even Hitler was saying, like, we're still going to have disagreements among each other. So it's like, what do you even gain?
Yeah.
So anyways, going back to the scientific racism. So he noticed that the French nobility was more light-skinned. The Spanish nobility were white-skinned compared to the Moors.
Yeah.
Like, that was just more obvious. Although if you look at, like, modern-day Moroccans, they don't look very dark-skinned. So
No.
I don't know how... and that could just be through time as well. Because they had, like, the Berbers and the Vandals there as well.
Yeah.
So they had a lot of German influence. Morocco is, like, the weirdest country on earth.
Yeah.
Besides maybe the Philippines. Like,
Yeah.
like, the Philippines and Morocco have had so many different cultures just melt into the weirdest mix. So then he said, if you look at Egypt, the rulers of Egypt were lighter skinned than the people in
And
Egypt.
that's because the Greeks took over.
That's probably part of it, yeah. Then he said, in China, the emperors have lighter skin than their people. I assume that's because of the sun. Or because their hand, maybe.
I
but
think that might actually be that the people were basically like 50% Mongolian. And
like the rulers were like Han or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Or maybe not, depends on when it was written. But
Yeah.
I think Han have been around for a while now.
Yeah.
Since Qin.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ethnic groups in China.
Used to be.
Still a lot, is.
They've done a pretty good job of like making it pure Han. Like
Really?
Like it's mostly Han now.
That's a shame. There was...
Because Han used to be a minority.
I know.
And now it's like huge.
That's because there's...
Like I think the Uyghurs, like they're still around.
Yeah, but they're like the mountain tribes and the Shin, and there was a group that were descended from the Mongolians.
Yeah, I think the Cantonese are a different group, possibly, but I'm not sure. Like I think there's still some groups, but I think it's definitely much smaller.
There used to be like 12 clans of China.
Because like China's been engaging in genocide for like 1,000 years or more.
But there was like 12 clans of China, and they're actually quite distinct. Like the
like the Wu. Well, they were more of a family, I guess. But
yeah, well, there's the families, but like the mountain tribes is one of the big ones.
Yeah.
Which the mountain tribes are a really cool genetic group of people and just culture. Because basically, you have bandits who go, we're done with civilization, we're going to live in the mountains. And they go up and live in the mountains and fight each other and have families for so long.
They become their own little group.
You have your own like culture and group of people who are the descendants of mountain bandits. And their culture is mountain bandits.
But even if, like, you know, China is more homogenous, right?
Yeah.
But there's Siberia, there's Mongolia,
Yeah.
there's Nepal even to a degree.
Yeah.
Like, there's the Khazars. Like,
Yeah.
there's Chinese adjacent groups that are still around.
The Taiwanese.
Yeah, well, they're more explicitly, like, Japanese, I would say. But, like, the Malaysians, I think,
What
could
the
be...
Taiwanese are not Japanese.
Chinese, sorry. yeah, Chinese. Yeah. No, like, they're China's Quebec, right?
Yeah.
Like, except more so.
Yeah. They're China's Quebec that left, and
No, they're still part of China. Like,
both sides are still... They are the capital of China.
no, Beijing's the capital of China.
No.
What?
No.
No,
The real China is Taiwan, and they are the...
No, but like, officially, as I understand it, by the UN recognition, Taiwan is a province of China. Well, actually, the UN might not. I don't know how that works.
According to China, it is, but Taiwan disagrees.
But I think, like...
According to the WHO, World Health Organization,
Yeah.
Taiwan's a part of China.
Yeah.
And that really pissed off Taiwan.
Yeah. But I think, like, because Taiwan doesn't have full autonomy. Like, I think, like...
No, it does.
Like, I think, like, theoretically, China can order them what to do.
No, they can't.
No?
Like
Hong Kong...
That's how Hong Kong can but Taiwan is completely... Like,
No, but
China wants to invade Taiwan.
Right, but Hong Kong thought they were free.
Yeah.
And then China said, no, you're not.
Yeah, no, Taiwan's different. Taiwan's a completely separatist that is impossible to invade.
Right, but I don't think they... Like, there was no revolution and declaration of, like...
No, there was.
Oh, was there?
Yes.
So they're like...
They...
Like Kosovo, sort of? Like Serbia and Kosovo, where they, like, split?
Yeah. No, they're completely split.
Oh, I thought they were still part of China.
No, that's Chinese propaganda.
Ah.
Taiwan is not a part of China. So basically, the fascist... Not fascist.
Chinese.
Well, no, so there's the communist Chinese.
Yeah.
And there's the fascist Chinese.
So you're saying Taiwan is not part of China?
That's correct.
We just lost 10,000 won.
Yeah, our social credits. But basically, the fascist Chinese, the Chinese government, who was in charge and fighting the revolutionaries, had their army destroyed by the Japanese.
Yeah.
And so they ran away to Taiwan and took a bunch of people with them. And they declared their independence of China and the Communist Chinese Party.
Right, but China hasn't recognized it.
China hasn't recognized that. They're just some weird rebels, but they are part of them. They say they are not a part of China. They are their own country. They are independent. There used to be...
So there's not like Chinese police walking around making... No, okay.
No, definitely not. No, there's problems whenever there's pro-Chinese politicians in Taiwan because they're worried that they're going to sabotage the country.
Because what I thought the situation was kind of like Catalonia or Quebec, where you have a bunch of people that want to separate, and they basically act like they already have separated.
Yeah.
But they're too valuable for the main country to just crack down on. So they just send some police to make sure you're staying at least like 10%, 90% in line. But
Taiwan...
But they're just like totally...
They're totally free of China besides their proximity and the threat of constant war.
Oh.
And so Taiwan is an island.
Yeah.
It's surrounded by one of the nastiest oceans on Earth. The only way to really invade it is by sea.
Yeah, and you've got the Japanese and American fleets kind of ready.
Ready to go. So Japan can't declare war.
Yeah.
But Japan has made the statement that...
Yeah, is Japan still a puppet of the States? Or
yes, it is.
Yeah, they haven't been released or something?
They're like one of the weirdest puppets, but they basically still belong to the States.
Yeah.
But Japan has the statement, which is any threats from China towards Taiwan is a threat to our sovereignty, because they take Taiwan, then they'll attack Japan.
Yeah.
So if China attacks Taiwan, they're declaring war on Japan.
Right.
And
so self-defense.
And self-defense, and America has to defend Japan. America also has to defend Taiwan because of treaties it has, which those treaties really pissed off China.
Yeah.
But basically, America is twice locked into having to defend Taiwan because they have to defend Japan and they have to defend Taiwan.
Right. But TMC or whatever, that like one of the most valuable companies on Earth.
Yeah.
Like they sell to China and the States, I think. So,
yep.
They're a Taiwanese company.
They're in to make money.
I guess it's just like you think you'd be a little leery about.
Yeah. No, it's Taiwan.
Did you have you heard how like ridiculously powerful they are? Like there was a massive earthquake that took out all of the power grids in Taiwan, and they have like these facilities because they make chips, right? That are super delicate. So if anything gets like bumped, it breaks.
Yeah.
But they've made these things like earthquake proof, and they have their own generator system in them that is so powerful. They powered Taiwan while the power grid was out. It's a crazy powerful.
No, America for like a couple of years now, I think since Biden was in, have been trying to move them to the States. It's just those facilities actually take years to build.
No, because they're like super like perfect and like dustless
and Taiwan's leery about that because that's their main leverage to get protection. Is they're the only people.
So if that company leaves, then Taiwan can just get invaded.
Yeah. So Taiwan also
because the States won't care anymore.
Yeah, a bunch of tariffs were recently lifted on Taiwan.
Yeah.
So they're buying as many American weapons as they can right now to get ready to defend themselves. So it's basically from multiple political analysts. If China's going to invade, they have to do it in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Because soon it's actually not going to be possible for them to win.
Right.
Because if Taiwan gets the right air defense weapons and the correct planes in the area, there's like one period in the spring you can invade Taiwan.
Right.
And with the right equipment, they can
defend for that.
They can defend from that.
And the Taiwanese are like the most like technologically advanced people on Earth as well, basically. So I imagine they're just
two exceptionally powerful allies.
Yeah. So I imagine they're just rocketing ahead too.
Yeah. I think even India is a semi-ally of Taiwan.
Yeah.
And it's not the fact that India is saying we'll protect Taiwan.
It's just if a massive force invades Taiwan, then
if a massive force puts all its effort into invading Taiwan,
India can take it.
India can attack China.
Yeah. Because there's like contested land between China and India.
Yes.
Yeah. So going back to racism. So yeah, so the higher ups in China, they're white people.
Yeah.
Basically, they're lighter skinned.
Yeah.
And then you look at a different French philosopher, kind of going off of the same French philosopher stuff. He made a list of the greatest nations in all of human history.
Yeah.
And so it's like the Romans, the British Empire, the
Vikings.
No. This is like the greatest empires. So like the Chinese Empire, the
Mongols.
I don't think that was in there actually. Funnily enough, It was like the ones that advanced civilization the most.
Okay.
So he had like 3 South American ones.
Yeah.
They used different names back then. The Egyptians he had in there, right? So all those guys, basically. And he said all but one of these was led by like a white, lighter skinned people, basically.
Yeah.
And like even in now this is why people attack Graham Hancock, and I didn't even realize. But because I said even in like South America, the leaders of those empires were lighter skinned, like Quetzalcoatl and Viracocha. And it's also why, you know that really interesting story I talked about in The Secret Teachings of the Ancient World, or All Ages, sorry, where it's Odin went across the lands and all his descendants became kings. That's also considered to be a very racist story, and that's part of why it isn't taught anymore. And the reason it's not taught anymore is because Odin was a white-skinned guy, and all his sons became the rulers of the lands. So you had darker-skinned people, like the darker-skinned French and Germans and whatnot, with their lighter-skinned Nordic sons of Odin.
What I literally interpret that story as is a man with white skin, like not pale, like white skin and white hair, and it's more of like almost albino, like not the translucent paint, but like you have this legend of Quetzalcoatl also looking like that and going around because he's unusual looking. It's making him distinct. Like he could have been red.
So the scientific racism theory, I guess, one of them anyways, is that Odin, Quetzalcoatl, Viracocha, all these guys were Atlanteans.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I kind of came to that on my own, but because it's sort of like not talked about, it didn't.
Yeah.
It's not really. Yeah, it's not a thing. And so they were Atlanteans that went around and went to guide the rest of the world.
Yeah.
With their superior genetics, basically, because they were the great kings.
I think they just had superior technology,
or
knowledge or culture,
or it just happened that like the 7 sages, which is like, you know, I don't know if they were the 7 sages, but that is a historical idea.
Yeah.
The 7 sages might have just happened to be, I think Persia was one of the great empires, but the 7 sages just happened to be light-skinned, and that's just coincidence. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, or quite literally, they were Atlanteans.
Yeah.
They had technology. They had the Daughter of the Sun, which is a spaceship.
Yeah.
And they flew around spreading their knowledge, and maybe they had a few kids while they did it.
Yeah, and it could be that humans, like the most common line of humans, let's say, were here. And then these were aliens that were very compatible to humans because of a common ancestry or something. And so the light-skinned...
this is getting to like the super racist theory with like the white-skinned aliens who come from Hyperborea or Alpha Centauri.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Hyperborea is the Nordic, right? So Hyperborea means more than north.
Yeah.
So it's like the northernmost place.
Yeah, so the Hyperborean aliens who are like white-skinned, blonde, blue-eyed.
Yeah, which is the Aryans, right?
And this is like considered super racist territory.
Yeah, because it's like, well, these aliens were superior. But it's like, they don't have to be superior. They could just be aliens.
Yeah.
Like the Hopi in the States, they're also, like, they call themselves the Star People.
Yeah.
They said they came from the stars, which is funny because the Navajo have a claim on the land. They say, you know, the Navajo say, we've been here forever. Yeah. But then the Navajo myths say they've only been there for about 500 years. And so the Hopi are like, no, we were here first. The Navajo don't own this land.
Yeah.
You should kick out the Navajo and give their land to us. But the Hopi are clearly colonizers because they came from the space.
Or there's
like the Hopi are alien colonizers.
I don't remember which group it is, but there's one First Nation group who hates another, as they do.
Yeah.
And their mythology, I think, is they are descendants of wolves or something.
Oh, so the Inuit think white people are the descendants of a woman having sex with dogs.
No, this is a different group.
Okay.
So they think they have like some super descendant, and the group they hate are descendants of maggots.
Yeah.
Like, it's like we come from like the eagles or like the gods.
Yeah.
You come from maggots.
Yeah. Yeah, you suck. We're cool. That's basically how every story goes, right?
Yeah.
But I think, and it is interesting because I think a lot of the self-flagellation happens because the people who are doing the flagellating are actually so culturally, like, you know, they're like the diverse people that are cosmopolitan and love all races, but they're actually so stuck in their own culture. They don't know about, like, the Yakubians, for instance, which is a more black mythology that white people were created by the evil scientist Yakub.
Yes.
And that's more of that's kind of like an Aryan myth for non-Aryan. Like that's the black people's version of the Aryan myth of like the white people.
Hyperborea. Yeah.
But it's the Yakubians instead, right?
What's funny with Yakub is so.
And I don't think he's very mainstream, to be clear.
No, but neither is Hyperborea.
Yeah. Well, I think that one's a bit more mainstream, though.
if anyone like talks about like Hyperborea,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you're super racist. If you talk about it's just funny.
Yeah.
Like Yakub, like learning the full history of Yakub, it is hilarious.
Or like the Inuit story about how like there was this evil woman who had a child with dogs, and that's how white people came to be.
Well, what's interesting as well is the other group that fought the Inuit.
The Vikings?
No, the group that's from Yellowknife area.
I mean, the Inuit fought quite a few people. They fought the Gwich'in, they fought the Dene, they fought
The people from the Headless Valley.
Oh, the Nahanni.
The Nahanni
Yeah.
have their mythology about their werewolves.
All right, then, yeah, we don't know any Nahanni people. Like, there is none on Earth that are part of the modern world.
Yes.
But
Or I guess the Athabascan then?
Athabascan is like everyone, basically, except for the Inuit.
Okay. Who are the current group who were Nahanni?
There is a Nahanni.
Okay.
Like, Nahanni were the evil people over there. So the Dene talk about the Nahanni being their problem.
But I believe it's Nahanni mythology or Dene mythology.
There is no Nahanni mythology.
Okay. Then it's Dene
Like,
mythology.
Nahanni are that evil race of people that we've never met, essentially.
Which, the theory, one of the stories of what wiped them out, because they disappeared, was one of the Nahanni had children with a wolf.
Yeah.
And then her children are these weird werewolves that can like turn to wolves or turn to people or turn to a mix of the two. And her vengeance against her people was having her children wipe out the Nahanni.
Yeah, so I think that's like a Dene myth about the Nahanni.
Yeah, and then there's the cryptid, the more mythological cryptid theory of the Headless Valley is that those werewolves wiped out the Nahanni, and they're also the creature that beheaded the gold miners and left their bodies there.
Yeah, the Walia is the name of the wolves.
Yeah, the Walia. And then there's stories about the Walia, which, like there's a cryptid story about the Walia, which is they can like possess you and sort of turn you into them. So like if you encounter Wahalia, if they don't eat you, they can like use their influence on you. And so there's a story of this native guy, I think he's a park ranger. And it was in like one of the more public areas of the Nahanni Park.
Yeah.
Which is, he heard there's these female hikers, then one of them went missing. And he's looking for her. He's also just paddling on a lake because it's a nice area. And he saw this naked woman with like pure white skin running like a wolf or a dog on the shoreline. And he's like, hey, I think that's the missing woman. And he tried to go find her, and she disappeared like a wolf into the woods.
Right, she'd been possessed.
And so he's like, oh, she's with the Wahalia now. They like bit her or something or possessed her.
That's interesting, because there's a story I read recently. He's a bit of a Gwich'in hero.
Yeah.
And he was, so that's like northern Yukon and Alaska. And he and his brother were orphans, basically. They went out on a hike together, and when they came back, their whole village was burned down.
Yeah.
And everyone was dead. So they're orphans. And so they're walking along, and the little brother's crying of the hero. The hero's the older brother, of course. And so the little brother's crying because his village is broke down. So his brother made him a ball to play with. He took, I think it was like cotton fluff, so from like the cotton trees, and he balled it up together into a big ball. And so
that's a pretty good toy.
Yeah, so they're like passing it back and forth.
Yeah.
And then...
a lot of work, but it's a good toy.
Yeah. And so they're passing it back and forth, and one of them misses the pass, probably the little brother. Yeah. And it goes into the lake that they're walking beside. And a grizzly bear is going for a paddle at the time.
Yeah.
So he's like rowing in his canoe, and it lands on his canoe paddle.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh great, the grizzly has the toy now. Yeah. And so the brother's crying. He's like, oh, I want my toy, I want my ball. So the older brother's like, okay, I'll go get it. And he's like, says to the grizzly, like, can I get that ball? He's like, yeah, no problem. Just come get it. And so he walks over and he grabs the ball. So he like walks. Did I tell you the story already?
No. I love the First Nation story.
Yeah.
Where the grizzly bear is both a man in a canoe.
Yeah.
And at the same time, he's an 800-pound grizzly bear who can tear your head off.
Yeah.
But it's not like he's a shapeshifter that goes between the two.
No, he's both.
Literally in a quantum state of flux where he's both at the same time.
Yeah. So he goes to grab the ball. So he stands on the paddle to pick up the ball, basically, right?
Yeah.
So the grizzly like catapults him into his canoe because he's on the paddle. So he just like chucks him in his canoe, and then the grizzly rows off with the older brother. Yeah. And so the little brother cries because his brother's been stolen, and he runs along the shore. He's like, "Don't leave me behind!" But he's running along the shore, and the grizzly's boating along the shore, kind of like that. They hit a great big river, that the little brother can't cross. And so it's basically over. Like, he can't get his brother back. And so then his brother, like, breaks down in despair and runs off into the woods to be a wolf on his own.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's not the full story, but just that part, it's like, if you were just isolated and alone, you became a wolf.
Yeah.
And some of the stories about Bushmen are kind of like that too, like the Sasquatch sort of stories, where they were actually, they were just people who lived on their own, basically.
Yeah. Or the more evil version of the story.
It's like it drives you insane or something.
Well, the more evil
like
version.
The Wendigo.
The Wendigo taking people over.
Well, the Bushmen can be pretty evil too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the other one, which is when someone's spirit guide possesses them and becomes corrupt. And they have a different name. They're like related to the Wendigo.
Yeah.
And some people say they are the same thing, but it's like this different thing where it's like, this is, his spirit guide is like a eagle.
Yeah.
And do not touch him. He's in the throes of it right now. He will become possessed by it. And then I fear he will become a Wendigo or something worse. And the white trapper who's there, like, or probably like university man who wants to study this culture, so what? It's like, yeah, don't touch the elder right now. He's battling with the spirits.
Well, I told you that story about how, like the Casca, they believe there's these ghosts that would haunt the camp by whistling. And there's that anthropologist who would hide outside the camp.
Yeah, well, he didn't help.
But it's like, it's just like, you have to, it's funny if you think about it. Like, you look at a lot of the ages of these explorers, they're like 22. They're like young guys just having fun. So
just one more story on that Wendigo story, which that Canadian guy told. This is a really cool one. There is this tribe where the grandmother basically said, leave, I'm becoming a Wendigo.
Yeah.
And so the whole village abandoned the village, and they went and they, in the story, they found the white man, they found a trapper. And he said, what do you mean by this? Like, she's possessed by evil spirits, the spirit of hunger. We won't be able to stop her. We have to cut off her head and burn her body to kill her.
Yeah.
And Trapper's like, that's kind of savage and brutal. It's your grandmother.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, I've got my gun, I've got my hatchet, I've got my Bowie knife.
Yeah.
Bravest men of your village, come with me, we'll go and see what's going on here. I think it's just an old woman.
Yeah.
And so they go to the village, and like a bunch of the tents are already burnt down. A bunch of things are burnt down. She's like in the big tent, and she's there, and her face is covered in blood, and she's almost naked.
Yeah.
And the trapper's like, okay, this is kind of creepy. What's going on here? And it's like, okay, let's try to subdue her. And some of the young men in the village are like, well, we don't believe the elder stories, and this guy's got a gun. He can kill bears. He's supernatural himself. So we're going to follow him. And so he's like, hold your grandmother down, basically.
Yeah.
And so they go to grab her, and like one grabs both each arm.
Yeah.
And she flings them off of him, and he's like, whoa, okay, this much. And then she charges them. So he levers his rifle, and he shoots her in the chest.
Yeah.
And she falls over. It's like, okay, well, old woman shot her in the chest. And she stands up. So, okay, reloads his rifle, shoots her again. And he shoots her 3 times. And one of the younger men who more believes it says to him, it's not going to work. You have to kill her with iron.
Yeah.
And your gun shoots lead.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, okay, this is like, there's a demon here. Like his journal wrote down, there's a demon here. And so he says, okay, keep shooting her because it slows her down. So he gives one of the guys who knows how to use a rifle his rifle. And the guy shoots her again. It's like, shoot her with arrows. And so they're shooting her with arrows. And she's covering these wounds. And he takes his hatchet and he throws it at her. And the iron hatchet blade pierces her skull.
Yeah.
And she lets out this horrible scream. And he's like, she's gotten like bigger and taller. And there's this dark spirit behind her. And it's got this hatchet in her head. And she's still not going down. And it's like, you have to cut her head off. You have to cut her head off. He's like, she's got my hatchet. So he takes out his knife.
Yeah.
And they tackle her to the ground. And he beheads her. It's like, the body still struggled afterwards. Like, now we have to burn her. And this poor guy's like, okay, we'll burn her.
Yeah.
And then burn the body. And it's just like, he encountered something he couldn't explain.
And I, like, it kind of, most of that actually, I was kind of thinking, like, is that rabies? Like,
yeah.
But again, what we were talking about in probably the previous episode at this point, but just because it's rabies or some variant disease that makes you, like, your nervous system go crazy, like cordyceps or something have taken her over, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Like, like, it's still this magical thing. It's just we found a cause for it that we think explains it away, but it's still there.
And he might have, like, embellished on the story because it's so terrifying in the moment.
Yeah, like,
he might have added some more details.
Yeah, or maybe there was a demon. Like, I mean, what's the difference between a demon and a bacteria that makes you turn into a demon? Like, is there really that much of a difference? So, one of the other empires I remembered actually was India. Yeah. And so Chandragupta was like the Aryan Chad who came and liberated India and enlightened it and brought it to this great empire.
Yeah.
And so Aryan, by the way, I should explain because, you know, the word means something. So there's this group that we now call the Proto-Indo-European group, which is where basically all European and all Indian, as you can tell by the names, originate from. So we all have a common ancestry. So India and Europe, all the same genetic ancestry, and all the myths are basically the same at some point. You go back far enough, they have a lot of links. The languages all kind of originate from this.
The northern Indians? Because India's a big place.
Yeah, so like Chandragupta's Indians. Yeah. So like the guys that conquered India actually. Yeah. But so that'd be like the Western and Northern Indians, I think. Yeah. And probably also a few other groups like going into there. But I don't think like Sri Lankans or stuff like that. But even then it might be just like even further.
India is a very big place.
Yeah. But it, like Europe is big too. Like you think of like all of Europe and all of India. So this was like a kind of the original humans in that region basically. Yeah. Spread out in about Iran area, I think. Yeah. So Iran means the land of the Aryans. Yeah. So I assume it was Iran. So the Persians as well were Aryan. But Aryan actually just is the old term for Proto-Indo-European. Yeah. So it's just the old word for it. Which is how it was used back then. So then they said Aryan inheritance. They're like, yeah, we were...
Is that the Caucasus region as well? Or is okay, the Caucasus Mountains.
Yeah. So that's the whole region. Starting mostly in like...
And that's where Caucasian comes from for white.
Yeah. But it's this, you could call them Aryans as well.
So Aryan and Caucasian is basically the same word. We just don't use Aryan anymore because it's got bad association.
And Aryan would also apply to Indians, but Caucasian doesn't as much, I guess. But yeah, they're basically the same word. Yeah. Yeah. So this guy, he said, look, every great empire but like one, there was an Aryan in charge, or they were influenced by the Aryans, and a lot of times it was Odin's sons that were in charge. Yeah. And so then there was another guy that came along. He's like, I'm going to classify all the races, and so he did like this race is choleric. This race is what are the other terms? Like all the like blood types, like the old-fashioned blood types. Yeah. And so he's like, there is the red race, there's the yellow race, there is the white race, there's the black race, and there is the Malaysian race. Yeah. And those are the 5 races. And I kept seeing that actually where there's 5 races and one is like the Malaysians. And I was like, what on earth is it? And
what's weird about this, I talked about this last time, I said the super whites. I didn't mean like they're super whites, like superheroes or something. Some people disagreed with this theory. I remember hearing about this. Because they said, no, there's like Saxon white. Yeah. But they're kind of like a ruddy pink. Yeah. And then there's Norwegian white. Yeah. And these are different. Yeah. These are very different people.
But there's like the main like 5 groups, right?
And but people claim that this should be a 6th group because the blonde and oranged hair white people of Norway and the other Nordic countries were really different. They're like big. They had deeper voices, completely different color hair and eyes.
What a lot of these people believed was that because you can sort of work backwards to Noah's Ark, which is somewhere in the Caucasus. Yeah. Right. And because the people in the Caucasus right now are lighter skinned than the people in the surrounding region.
Oh, so they're all the different children of Noah's sons?
Yes, but or some variant of that. Yeah. But it's more that the people in the region are going to be the originals, which means that if you go further away and the skin gets darker or the people get shorter, that means that the original people are lighter skinned and are taller. So that means that the Aryans are the original best group, which means that the most Aryan people, the Nords, are the purest Aryan group. So even other races like the Slavs can be part of the Aryans, but they've degenerated, they've fallen, whereas I think they call them the Hamites, which was like the Egyptian sort of subclass. And so they've degenerated into like the Semitic and the like Hamite or Hemite or whatever it was. And the purest Aryans are the Norse. So they had tiers of Aryan as well. Yeah. So like Hitler was an Aryan even though he didn't have blonde hair or blue eyes or anything like that. There's actually someone's...
Well, if you want to go by rareness of eye color, blue isn't actually nearly as rare as green, amethyst, or hazel.
Yeah, but it's not about rarity. No. It's about purity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't about like being this rare super race. It's just by deductive logical reasoning, the Aryans are the superior, and the most superior of the Aryans is the Nords. Yeah. And so basically what happened was...
unless they're ginger.
All the greatest civilizations were created by Aryans. And so Hitler has a counter-argument, though, because he says, but you look at, like, the Germans compared to the Romans, right? Yeah. And the Germans were barbarians. They didn't build civilization. The Romans built civilization. So what do you say to that? And he said, well, it was a blessing and a curse. The further north you go, the more isolated you are because it's so cold, no one else is there. Yeah. Which means your race stays pure the further north you go because you don't have all these influences of the weaker race, because the weaker races can't survive in the cold. So the further north you go, you have some pure races like the Nords. But it also means that you are so focused on survival you're unable to build up civilization. But look at what happened in the late 1800s. The moment Germany was in a position where they didn't have to worry about the cold anymore, where their technology became great enough that they didn't have to worry about the cold, they flourished into one of the greatest civilizations almost instantly, thus proving the purity of the Nordic blood was what built civilization.
And then the Kaiser lost a war.
But I heard this joke. It was like, to be an Aryan, you have to have as luscious hair as Himmler, as blonde as Hitler, as tall as Goebbels. It's like, that is the master race.
A club foot like Goebbels.
Yeah, with blue eyes like Goring or whatever. Like, it was... But, so...
Sorry, it's just... Goebbels had like 12 children.
Oh.
And he killed them all.
Oh, that's a little messed up.
Yeah, so...
Why did he do that?
So, Hitler had already killed himself.
Yeah. Oh, he was worried about his children's safety, maybe.
And so he actually became in charge of the Kaiser bunker, or the Hitler bunker, whatever. Führer bunker, that's it.
Yeah.
And he was in charge of Germany. And he saw the Russians coming.
Yeah.
And he decided it would be better for all his children to take a mixture of like cyanide and brandy than for them to be caught by the Russians.
Yeah.
And
I mean, maybe.
He administered it to them, and then he buried all of them in the garden. And then he went into the garden with his wife. And it's sort of uncertain, like with Hitler's death, if they had an aide do it or they did, but they took cyanide pills and shot each other.
Mm. Yeah, I've been...
But he basically, with his children, he's like, even... Like, me and my wife are definitely going to die. That's a guaranteed.
Yeah.
And whatever fate's coming for my children, it'll be better for them to be dead than for them to survive in a world without me and her.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, I thought Goebbels was tried at maybe I'm not...
No, he killed himself.
Okay. Yeah, he was, learning a bit more about him, like, he was kind of like Hitler. Like, I think they're quite similar in ideology in a lot of ways, where they were willing to have a human element in their beliefs. Like I was telling you how Hitler had a chauffeur who was like an eighth Jewish.
Yeah.
And Goebbels was the guy backing Hitler up when he was arguing with Himmler. He was like, no, just let the guy be part of the SS. But Himmler, I think, was actually like a very honorable man in the sense that he had his convictions and he stuck to them no matter the cost, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of makes me wonder if, maybe the term isn't honor, but like, if sticking to your convictions no matter what is actually a virtue.
Dogmatic?
Yeah.
Is the term.
Yeah. But even more so, like, because he, I have some quotes I'll read eventually here from Himmler, but he was basically saying like, man, the Holocaust sucks. Like, he thought it was horrible, but he's like, but I am not a coward. And I'm going to keep doing it. Like these quotes here are all basically him saying, I hate the Holocaust. I hate how horrible it is. I hate that we're killing women and children. But I am not going to back down. I am going to be strong, and I'm going to keep doing this. And it's like, that's weird, right? I mean, that's in terms of, like, he's whereas Hitler, when his chauffeur was on the line, he's like, no, I'm standing by my chauffeur. He's my friend. Yeah. Whereas I don't think Himmler would. I think Himmler would actually shoot his friend for his principles.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, he's an honorable man in a way. But it's like, that's...
Well, I think it's he's demonically possessed.
But it's like he stands by his values even when everything tells him that he shouldn't. He's like, no, I have these beliefs and I will stand by them.
Yeah, that's demonic possession.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think it's like, sometimes you need to just say like maybe your principles aren't everything in a way, right? Like it's a weird one. It's a tricky one. Because sometimes your principles can be wrong. Yeah. And if everything's telling you, well, my principle is telling me this, but everything else is telling me the other thing, maybe you shouldn't stand by your principles in that case. Maybe you should question them. I don't know. Because like Hitler was clearly questioning and Goebbels was questioning a little bit. Not much, not enough, but a little bit. Yeah. Whereas Himmler just was like, I'm doubling down. So there was these divisions of races, like I said, and then there was pure strains, like the Nords were the purest strain, and then the Slavs are like the degenerate strain of the Aryans, and then the
really didn't like those Slavs, did he?
No, he didn't. And then the Jews, I don't remember how that worked. I think Hitler kind of added them in. But anyways, these 5 different races, or whatever number they ended up being depending on the person, were actually considered to be different origins. So in modern terms, we'd say one is Denisovan, one was Neanderthal, one was Cro-Magnon. They were actually had different origin points. There wasn't like the cradle of Africa, which that theory does seem to be less and less likely as we. And I wonder if that idea that we all came from Africa was another, because the crazy thing about reading Mein Kampf and learning about the history of the racism of World War II, it's like every educational and like administrative and intelligentsia effort seems to be just oriented towards not being like Hitler, like just denying everything Hitler did. Like there's you can use Einstein to refute these guys, funnily enough, but there was I was reading this article where this biologist was saying, I can't believe there's still people that think there's races when a group of 147 anthropologists and biologists signed this paper saying there are no races. So Einstein has this favorite quote where people hated his, I think it was special relativity.
Yeah.
And so this group of like 100 like top tier physicists signed this paper saying like Einstein is wrong. He's totally wrong about his theory of relativity. It makes no sense. It breaks everything in physics. It's totally wrong. And Einstein said, if I was wrong, one name would have sufficed. Because he's like, just prove me wrong.
Yeah.
He's like, just prove me. You don't have to have 100 people sign a paper.
Well,
just prove me wrong.
I think Farside did a brilliant one on that.
Yeah.
Which is 9 out of 10 scientists agree
that
the 10th scientist is a moron.
Yeah, it's like numbers don't mean anything. Mm-hmm. And I do think, like, reading about the phrenology, weirdly being like the one I believe most, the history of phrenology, it doesn't seem like skull type is actually based on your race or your ancestry at all. It seems to be based on where you grew up, which is fascinating. There was I think it was Boas did the study, but he measured like hundreds upon hundreds of skulls.
Boethius?
No, Boas.
Okay.
Boas.
Okay.
He did this huge study on skulls, and he was like, yeah, no, if people live in New York for 2 generations and they're from like Africa, their skulls are exactly the same as people that are like European descent that lived in New York for 2 generations. He didn't see a difference. So I think...
So like your environment determines your skull.
Yeah, and your phenotype, I guess, to a degree as well. So like you're taller, you've got... Yeah. So basically, if you've grown up in the same environment for a few generations, you're basically the same. Even if your skin color is different, it's like everything else is basically the same, is what he came up with. Now, I think the HLA stuff we were talking about in the previous episode does suggest... I think that's the closest thing we have to race, maybe, as a thing. Like, but that's almost like ethnicity, like we were saying.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like your history rather than your family history rather than your genetic history. And so when they say race doesn't exist, I find it, like, I think what they're saying is that there's not enough genetic difference to make hard lines between people and we all have a common ancestor. I think that's what they're saying when they say race doesn't exist, something like that. Or we're not a different species. But it's really annoying when they're like, I can't believe this has been disproven by like hundreds of scientists. It's like, yeah, am I going to believe all those scientists or my eyes?
Yeah.
Like, I can tell if someone's from Ghana. I can tell if someone's from even Australia, right?
Yeah.
Like, Australians have, like, these shinier, like, narrower faces. Like, they look slightly different from Canadians and Americans. And British people, they tend to look a bit more Canadian. But even then, they do look a little different.
Yeah.
They look a bit gaunter.
So I've talked about this experience before.
Yeah.
But we confused a poor Turkish man. Because my dad and I were traveling together. And a Turkish rug collector, who he must have been like a multi-millionaire we encountered, was talking with us at a restaurant. And he looked at us like, are you two brothers?
Yeah.
And because he was confused by me and my dad.
Yeah.
He's complimenting my dad, saying he's very young. Yeah. And then he's asking, like, where are you from? We said, oh, Canada. He's like, oh, okay. And then he's looking at my dad, like, you look really German.
Yeah.
And Dad's like, yeah, from Germany. And then he's looking at me, he's like, and are you British? He like pointed at me. It's like, no, I'm from Canada. It's like, you look really British. Like, you could go to Britain and blend in with British people. You don't look like any Canadian I've ever met before. You look British.
Yeah, you have British ancestry. So.
Yeah. But a lot of Canadians have British ancestry, but he basically said to us, you don't look Canadian to me. You look British.
But I think it is, like, you can see that there is some, like even... Like, you know, like I said, the skull shape will probably even out pretty quickly. But even then, you're like, at the very least, you have some ancestry somewhere else, right? Like, I think an obvious example of the phrenology's aligning, as it were, is if you go to Vancouver, there's a lot of Koreans and Chinese people, and they look Canadian. Like, they look Canadian, but they have, like, dark straight hair, and they might have the... no epicanthal folds or whatever. Yeah. But otherwise, they look Canadian. Like they don't look Chinese. They don't look Korean. Especially the Koreans. They don't look Korean at all. Like, Koreans look very different from these Korean Canadians. Yeah. But they it's still, like, you tell me race doesn't exist? Like, these people clearly have an ancestry of a group of people that was... So what you're doing is you're redefining the word race, and then you're saying our definition doesn't exist. And it's like, okay, good, you won. You beat the straw man. Good job. Yeah. It's like, but race clearly does exist to some degree. But because it was such a driving force behind the Nazis, I think, and the lesser talked about, but possibly worse, Japanese, like, invasion of China and whatnot. Yeah. Because it's such a driving force there, we're not allowed to say that races are different and have different qualities and different. And the problem is as well, they don't trust people with the stats, right? Because and I don't trust people's stats either, but I think covering up makes it worse. But you hear like Chinese have a higher IQ on average than Nigerians. That does not mean anything about the quality of a Nigerian person or a Chinese person.
No.
And that doesn't mean anything about the most intelligent Nigerian or the most intelligent Chinese person. Like the most intelligent person on earth could be Nigerian, even if Chinese are more average, intelligent on average. And it's funny because in Mein Kampf, Hitler even talks about how he thinks the Jews are the most intelligent race, but he doesn't think that's a beneficial quality, right?
Yeah.
He's just saying like, here's the facts, right? Like, Jews are the most intelligent race and they're evil. But he's not saying that to say they're better, because he said no, the Aryans are the best because they are the ones with the creative spirit and the will to survive and the sort of moving forward sort of thing. It was like so I guess it's just right. So there was the 5 different races. And they had a blood in them. So each race had their own blood. So you had your yellow blood and your red blood and your and these bloods were like a mystical spirit, like that animated the clay of humanity essentially, right? So it's kind of like if you imagine a series of golems and you have, let's say, orbs that animate the golems, and one's blue and one's red and one's yellow and one's green. Yeah. You could plug out, like you take out the red orb from the golem and stick in the other golem, and that golem now glows red even though it was the green golem before, right? So this blood is like this animating force. And if you mix those bloods, you're like actually, this blood is containing the, like sort of the ancestral power of your race. And so if that mixes, it's going to have chaos, it's going to clash and cause... So Nietzsche believed, because Nietzsche didn't like the Nazis at all, but he believed that mixed race people, essentially that's where depression and other mental illnesses come from, because you're at war with yourself. You have instincts pointing in multiple directions. Yeah. And Nietzsche was interesting. I mean, Nietzsche was fascinating for so many reasons, because Nietzsche actually believed like you're at war with yourself, but that's where the most creativity comes from, because you're just like this monster that's just tossed in every direction, so you have the most like freedom and destruction and chaos and creation. So he was kind of like, if you do it, it's going to be bad, but in the long run you get something far greater than the sum of its parts sort of thing. So it's this sort of look like you're fading a little. You good there?
I'm fine.
You bored with racism?
No, my eyes are just itchy.
Okay.
And I haven't eaten all that much today.
Okay.
But I'm fine.
Okay.
I find this fascinating.
Okay. I want to talk about Hitler's like school reforms.
Was the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Yeah. But I think I'll have to save this Hitler's school reforms for another day, probably. Okay. But I'll talk it like I mentioned Himmler.
Let's get some Himmler quotes in here.
So this was, he did a series of
a little treat for us.
Yeah. So he did a series of speeches in. I should say though, this was like everyone believed this stuff. Like this was the philosophy of Europe at the time. Was basically there are these different races.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing. Everyone believes this, and like all the medieval people, they're so stupid with their humors and their draughts and all that stuff. Yeah. And it's what they had, is what they knew, is what they used. It actually might have been effective. Yeah. Maybe
it was true enough, right?
Yeah, it's like blood drawing. It's like, when they applied blood drawing, the diseases they used on, it didn't always work, but certain ones, it was actually a pretty good idea to do blood drawing. And it's like, the yellow, like he has too much yellow bile. It's like, well, no, he didn't have too much yellow bile, but the way to treat too much yellow bile
is the correct way to treat whatever the condition was.
The correct way to deal with dehydration. Yeah. And he was probably dehydrated.
And the thing...
Like, the one thing, this is one of the biggest weird history lies, is the plague doctors during the Black Death. People say they spread the plague, they did more harm than good. Yeah. They did spread the plague, that is true. But people they treated, you had a better chance of surviving most of the time if you were treated by a plague doctor than not, because they were doing something for you. And these people aren't quacks that are going, this person's dying because I'm feeding him mercury. Yeah. The next person will survive mercury because he has a stronger spirit. They would go, all right, the mercury obviously isn't working, but that guy had to drink like a ton of horse piss. Yeah. He seemed to survive. So obviously it's something in the horse piss that's keeping them alive. So I'm just going to have people keep on drinking horse piss. Obviously, what's going on there is they're hydrating these people.
Yeah.
So he's right, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, or whatever the case may be.
And then we go to phlegmatic and...
Thalidomide, yeah.
Yeah, and the generation of children now lost for it. And there's like so many cases throughout history.
Yeah. Well,
we were wrong about something, and we say the science is wrong, but there's actually little truths in there, or little differences, or not everything is static.
Well, what I'm really concerned about, actually, with learning about this stuff in some ways is it's like impossible to understand the 20th century, because like this was a very key driving force behind everything. And also, we have gone so far to spite the Nazi ideology that I think we're denying some things that might be really useful or important to talk about. And it's also like fascinating because like Atlantis is a Nazi thing because it was, and Odin is a Nazi thing because it was. But it's like, but could we please like
a more common one is a swastika.
Yeah. Well, that one I'm less concerned about in some ways.
Yeah.
But because maybe if I thought about it, I wouldn't be. But it's more like, it's not that we're losing our history. It's actually that like people like Graham Hancock, who are looking at the truth behind history that isn't mainstream, gets called a neo-Nazi because he's looking at stuff that the Nazis were basing a lot of their ideas on. But just because the Nazis were basing their ideas on them doesn't mean they're not true.
Yeah. Well, even I think symbols are important.
Like Hitler was a huge proponent of exercise.
Yeah. I think symbols are important.
Yeah.
Like yin-yang's lines, like the symmetries, rotating symmetries, and losing access in the West because the Hindus and the Buddhists kind of don't care. They get pissed off by Westerners, but losing access to like one whole symbol.
Yeah, and a very like one of the most common symbols on Earth, like through all the cultures.
You
like,
can
it was found in South America. It was found in North America. It was found.
You can
in Asia.
accidentally make it. Like when I was making a mod review, I was making a power flower.
Yeah. And
to move dark matter through my power flower, I had a bunch of hoppers.
Yeah.
And like the geometry of it, I accidentally made a swastika.
Yeah.
Because it was the most efficient form.
Yeah.
And I had to change my geometry for the video because I didn't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, no, it is a very...
so my system became less efficient.
And Mr. Streamer, when he used to play RimWorld, like before they had modular hydroponics, he used to... The most efficient way to pack around a sun lamp is to like do like a sort of spiraling swastika thing. And he used to say, "Time for swastika roulette," because it's like...
Yeah, no, I've made those things. It was the most efficient shape you can do the hydroponics around a sun lamp.
Yeah, and... so you don't want to lose access, like, even just like efficiency, right? Or like, I've seen doormats that have that pattern repeated through them because it's like a nice pattern to get like other shapes going, basically. Yeah. But so it's a shame that we lost all that, but it's also like, there's so many interesting alternative history things that, and it's the reason why academics call everything, I think it is, like, I could be wrong here, but I think it's why everything's a Nazi and you have to point it out, sort of, like that whole like crazy woke thing that happened, or the SJW thing that happened, where everything's Nazi adjacent, because Hitler was a huge fan of exercise. So it's like, oh wow, if you're like a big exercise guy, then that's like, you're far right? Yeah. Because it's like, you are more like Hitler. Hitler was amazing at talking to people and being a populist, right? He was like, listen to the people, see how they respond to what you're saying, and then change it based on what they're saying. It's like, that sounds like someone who's a great orator and a great leader in some ways to me. But, populism, that's Nazis. Because it was. Yeah. And it's like, we have to like abandon like half our culture just to not be Nazis.
Yeah, you can't listen to your people because that's what Hitler did.
Yeah. And thankfully, like, we're not abusing animals or something, but to show Hitler
or abusing vegetarians.
Yeah. But he was just so...
the one group of people we could have benefited from being anti...
Yeah, the one good thing that came out, and no, we didn't take advantage of it. So yeah, Himmler gave a series of speeches in Poland. I don't know if they were at Auschwitz or not. They were called the Pens speeches, I think. He had a bunch of them. And I think some of them were just because some of them he says, like, please don't let this leave the closest circle of you. So I think some of these were more private speeches he was giving, but some were for crowds. And so, let's see, what was this one? Yeah, so this is how this one starts. I ask of you that which I say to you in this circle be really only heard and not ever discussed. So he's like, you didn't hear this from me, right? He said, we are faced with the question, what about the women and children? I decided to find a clear solution to this problem too. So this is kind of mid/before Holocaust, I think, because he's kind of like, what do we do with women and children? And he said, I do not consider myself justified to exterminate the men. In other words, to kill them or have them killed and allow the avengers of our sons and grandsons in the form of their children to grow up. The difficult decision had to be made to have this people disappear from the earth. For the organization which had to execute this task, it was the most difficult thing we had ever had. I feel obliged to you, as the most superior dignitary of the party, this political order, because he is second in command at this point.
Leader of the SS, is he not?
Yeah, I think so. And so he's meant to be the SS were meant to be essentially the foundation of the new order once everything was taken care of. Because they were meant to be like pure blood. They had to submit to Himmler their family ancestry going back 3 generations, I think, and then he could make sure there was no Jews in there. Yeah. And then if you were like a pure blood Aryan, you could join up. So, and keep in mind, you don't have to have blonde hair. You just have to be an Aryan. And they wanted the Nordic Aryans to be the master race in the long run, but that was kind of a long-term goal. It's like, just make everyone Aryan, and then we'll slowly breed in the Nords, basically. And also, actually, this is... So, Hitler was... He was really... At first, in Mein Kampf at least, right? He said degenerative diseases have no being part of the gene pool, basically, right? Like he was a very Darwinist sort of guy, which is funny because Darwin let nature, like in Darwinism, nature decides what happens, not you. But he thought like the future generations will be much healthier if degenerative diseases, depression, addiction, those don't enter the gene line. Yeah. But he also said like, look, if a man and a woman get married and they both have, let's say, depression, right, and so they shouldn't have children. They should not be allowed to have children. They should probably be sterilized, right? However, there's a lot of orphans. And these people would be greater than parents, like loving parents who have children, if they are loving parents of orphans, who can then make these orphans great people who can serve their country. And so he was, he did have a lot of like, look, it's okay if you have addictions and degeneracy, as long as you don't pass that into the next generation and you do something great. He said this isn't a lot to ask of people because monks already do this. They serve themselves to God, so why not serve the country? Yeah. And so that was sort of his argument there. And so I do think like there's a lot of talk about
evil compassion.
Well, I think Hitler was like persecuting a lot of like the homosexuals and whatnot, right? Yeah. But I think based on what I read, and I'd love to have him on the show, but I think if like a gay guy and a gay girl got married and adopted a bunch of children, he would be okay with that, possibly. I
don't think those children would be.
Because as long as they were raising them in a loving, like normal, healthy way. Now, it could be that he thought that that was such a degenerate condition that it was like these people are just going to corrupt the children or something. But I do wonder, like...
I feel like people forced into a situation like that against their nature isn't going to raise happy children.
Yeah, so he actually believed after school, all boys should have to serve 2 years in the military. And only after they'd finished their military service would they be considered a citizen of Germany. So he thought there was 3 kinds of people. There was like foreigners. There was, he called them, I can't remember. It was like unlanded, basically. It's like people in Germany who aren't actually Germans. Yeah. They just live there. And then...
So like Sorbs.
No, the Sorbs were interesting because the Sorbs actually had a specific category in the whole like Nazi ideology in regards to Aryanism. Because the Sorbs were Aryans that had a non-Aryan culture. And so as long as they renounced their backwards Slavic culture, they could be considered full-blood Aryans. It's just the problem was that they had this horrible language and this horrible culture.
And so a lot of them were killed.
I think mostly they were just forced to completely abandon their culture and their roots and everything.
And sent to the Eastern Front.
Yeah, well, I mean, they weren't rounded up and put in camps, but they
were killed much more efficiently in some ways. They were
usefully.
They were exported to the Russians to do the killing.
Yeah, and there was also like Hitler's chauffeur. He was an honorary Aryan, an honorarian, if you will. And then the whole Japanese race were also considered honorary Aryan because their principles aligned so much with the Nazis, and they had shown themselves to be so great at achieving things. So there was a lot of
horrible things.
There was a lot of wiggle room.
147.
Yeah. So there was a lot of wiggle room for becoming an Aryan through just like having it honorarily bestowed upon you, basically. Yeah. So continuing on here. This political order, this political instrument of the Führer, to also speak about this question quite openly and say how it has, and to say how it has been. The Jewish question in the countries that we occupy will be solved by the end of this year. Only remainders of odd Jews that manage to find hiding places will be left over. Because the Jewish question is essentially, the Jews are evil, what now? Right? That's like the Jewish question, right? And so Himmler's like, I don't even want to kill the men, but we're going to kill them all, men, women, and children. Yeah. And so that was what he said. So... This was a bit later in his speech. Another question which was decisive for the inner security of the Reich in Europe was the Jewish question. So, like, it was, he did a lot of speeches that were kind of similar lines. It was uncompromisingly solved after orders and rational recognition. I believe, gentlemen, that you know me well enough to know that I am not a bloodthirsty person. I am not a man who takes pleasure or joy when something rough must be done. However, on the other hand, I have such good nerves and such a developed sense of duty, I can say that for myself, that when I recognize something as necessary, I can implement it without compromise. That's what I'm talking about. He's a very principled man.
Yeah.
He's like, I will not flinch. I don't like hurting people. But if I have to, I'm going to do it. I have not considered myself entitled. This concerns especially the Jewish women and children. He stopped a lot. I guess that's how the Germans spoke at the time. To allow the children to grow into the avengers who will then murder our children and our grandchildren. So he's like, I don't want to kill the children, but if we don't, they're going to grow up.
Yeah.
Which is how our whole ancestry started, actually. Our ancestor wasn't killed.
Yeah.
And he was just, he had all his limbs broken and he was stuck in a box while he healed. So he was like this horrible, deformed, like, mutant man. And then he was made a monk. And then that monk had like 40 kids.
Yes.
He was a very bad monk.
Yeah, he's the progenitor of a whole clan.
Yeah. But they tried.
Yeah.
They had mercy on him. And Scottish mercy was not nice.
No.
That would have been cowardly. Consequently, the question was uncompromisingly resolved. He was like, I'm not a coward. I'm going to do this. And so then this is his speech. This one's interesting because the transcript I have of it actually has how he talked in it. So I can do my best Himmler impersonation here. Okay. I'm not going to do an accent or anything. It's just he had a... when you speak, you convince people with different intonations, right? So I'm talking about the evacuation of the Jews, the extermination of the Jewish people. It is one of those things that is easily said. The Jewish people has been exterminated. Every party member will tell you, perfectly clear, it's part of our plans. We're eliminating the Jews, exterminating them, a small matter. And then along they all come, all the 800 million upright Germans, and each one has his decent Jew. They say, all the others are swine, but here is a first-class Jew. The audience laughs. And, someone coughs, none of them has seen it, has endured it. Most of you will know what it means when 100 bodies lie together, when 500 are there, or when there are 1,000. And to have seen this through, and with the exception of human weakness, to have remained decent has made us hard, and is a page of glory never mentioned, and never to be mentioned. Because we know how difficult things would be if today in every city, during the bomb attacks, the burdens of war and privations, we still had Jews as secret saboteurs, agitators, and instigators. We would probably be at the same stage as 16 and 17 if the Jews still resided in the body of the German people. So he's basically saying, this is horrible, and you and I, we're going to share that burden, and no one else in Germany has to. And it's awful. But before that, he also says, everyone has a first-class Jew. And it's like... So he's like, everyone there thought it was bad. And they also thought there was a lot of good Jews. But they were so worried about losing like they had in World War I that they're like, we just have to kill them all. Because what they believed was during World War... This is another thing that isn't like, really historically... Well, I think it's a bit more, but... They believed that the munitions strikes during World War I and the... revolution that happened during the war was why they lost, which is probably true in some part. But they thought that was resulted because the Jews were going around instigating things, essentially driving up support, and that could have also been true because the Jews were a lot more of the like educated people that were probably.
I feel like, but without the munitions strikes, it just would have been a little bit of a longer war, but Germany still would have lost.
Well, I think Germany was like World War One, like World War II. I don't think Germany had a hope, but I think World War One. They could have probably gotten a white peace in the right circumstances, maybe. But I don't know what that would be. Like, not having a civil war would help. Yeah. 2 civil wars, technically. I guess 1 revolution and 1 civil war.
The big thing about World War One is trench warfare was broken by the tank.
Yeah. Yeah, the British were, I guess they were kind of winning after a while.
That is why in World War II, the Blitzkrieg happened with tanks. Was a sort of fascination with this technology that broke the stalemate. Yeah,
it was like, wow, that worked.
Yeah.
No, Hitler loved technology. Like in Mein Kampf, he's talking about how it's better to have something superior than to have a bunch of something. Which is like very how World War II was conducted.
Yeah, and the Russians proved him wrong.
Because he basically said, look, if you have one guy... I don't remember how he said it exactly, but it's essentially, the story of that Viking who held the bridge for, like, against an army.
Yeah.
It's basically...
The Stamford Bridge.
Yeah. It's basically that story, but he's like, if everyone was like that Viking, you can't lose.
Yeah, and the Russians proved that wrong.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I guess they did. They're just like, you just need more people to die on the front line.
You
just need 14
Stalingrad the German higher command actually couldn't comprehend what happened at Stalingrad.
Yeah.
Because the amount of death that happened on the Russian side is actually absurd.
Yeah. Well, it was like 14 million or something, or what? It was crazy.
8 million, I think.
Yeah, maybe not that high, yeah.
But it is like, all right, they have to break eventually. Like, no one's going to send that many soldiers here. We're so entrenched, we have the right position. They have to surrender. They have to surrender. Why aren't they surrendering?
Yeah.
What's going on?
It's just like more and more dead, and they're just... But it's the most populous country on earth at the time.
Yeah.
114 million, I think. And then they just kept coming and coming and coming and coming.
It's like, what was wrong with these people? And then it's like, okay, we lost at Stalingrad. What do you mean we lost at Stalingrad? It was impossible to lose. For us to lose at Stalingrad, 8 million people had to die. Yeah, 8 million people died. It's like, what are we fighting against? Like, no, I don't believe you. That's not possible.
So, and I think part of it, I hadn't really thought about this. Like, I had to memorize the name of the treaty when I was in history class in school. But I never really knew what the treaty was about, which, I think that says something about the way school's done, which Hitler would have disagreed with, because he thought rote memorization was actually useless. Yeah. And I think he would have been a great teacher, actually. Like, a lot of the stuff he talked about. But he said, and he's a really, like, you can tell he's a really good speaker, because he was talking about the first couple speeches he did about the Treaty of Versailles. He said he would go to meeting halls and he would talk about the Treaty of Versailles, and he'd get shouted down by the audience, and he would have people in the audience shout him like, what about the Brest-Litovsk Treaty? What about the Brest-Litovsk Treaty? Because he was going up there to say, like, the Treaty of Versailles was super unfair. We had to give up all this land. We had to give up our military. It was totally not in our favor. But the Brest-Litovsk Treaty, which had been done like a couple, like maybe even the same year, I don't remember. But it was very similar time to the Treaty of Versailles, was between the Germans and the Soviets. And the Germans basically said, you give us Ukraine, you give us, like, they took a huge chunk of Russia. Yeah. And then they also took a ton of money from the Russians. And so it was, like, super unfair to the Russians. Yeah. And so the people in the crowd would be like, you're saying that the French were unfair to us, but we were super unfair to the Russians. And so Hitler's, like, it just turned to shouting, and Hitler would be on the back foot trying to defend, like, no, the Treaty of Versailles was way worse, right? Yeah. So he said what he did, after like one or two of those, he changed his speech title. So instead of being called the Treaty of Versailles, he called it the Treaties of Brest-Litovsk and Versailles. And then he would talk about both of them at the same time, and he'd compare them. So he'd be like, so in the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, we asked for this much land, and in the Treaty of Versailles, they asked for this much land. So he'd compare them. And so if agitators came to, like, what about Brest-Litovsk? He's like, yep, I'm talking about that. It's right here. So he could totally cut their argument off the knees because he was already talking about it. And he said the average person that was listening, that wasn't like a Jewish Marxist but was just a common worker who had the more like, oh, we were so mean to the Russians in mind, they'd get to first see his thing and be like, oh no, it wasn't that bad, I guess. And then even if the agitators then said, no, it was awful, it's like, no, he just told it. Like, he was willing to talk about it, so it's totally fine. So he was great at, like, I'll take the arguments of my foes and use them before they do, and then I can defeat them just like that, which is...
Something also, I only learned this recently. Do you know how absurd the political scene of Weimar was when Hitler was coming to power and, like, his prison sentence?
I think I remember hearing some crazy stuff, like they
were... Well, so being a part of a political party was basically being a gang member.
Yeah.
And political debates were often gang warfare and fights. You would be walking the street with an armband of your political party.
It was like Rome.
And you see someone else with an armband.
Yeah.
And you would check around to see how many other people had that armband of your side and his side. And then you go kill him.
Right.
If you had more people.
Yeah, that's messed up.
And like that Weimar political parties, like the people saying, so he takes power with the Nazi party.
Yeah.
And then he bans his political opponents and puts them in jail, so ends their parties.
Yeah.
That obviously is the complete dissolution of democracy.
Yeah.
So you get into power, and you see the people you've been fighting for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
You're going to get rid of your enemy if you can.
Yeah, well, Hitler also didn't like democracy.
But this isn't like the conservative versus the liberal in Canada.
Yeah.
Of, we have a difference of opinion, but we're still both Canadians.
Yeah.
It's, this guy is my enemy who's tried to kill me.
Yeah.
And that's not to say what he did was right, but again, there's something else to history beyond that isn't really taught. Like the Weimar Republic was not a good place to live.
No.
But there's a reason Germany became the way it was. It just wasn't the right solution.
There's also a reason why Churchill didn't like Hitler, though. Like, because you read Mein Kampf, and, like, every bad thing Hitler ever did in his rule, it's like, he said he was going to do that.
Yeah.
Like, why were you guys
a hypocrite.
surprised? Like, it's all in here.
Oh, no, yeah. He said all his plans.
Yeah, he's like, I hate democracy. I think you should always be on the offense. You need to invade Russia and take all their land. The Slavs are terrible. The Habsburgs are terrible. The French are terrible. The Jews need to be gotten rid of. Like, he says it all. And it's like, why did you think this wouldn't happen?
We literally have his blueprint.
Yeah, like, now when he became, to be fair to, like, Chamberlain and whatnot, when he became leader of Germany, he said, I'll keep the book in circulation, but its views no longer reflect what I believe.
Yeah.
But there's a part in the book where he says, I believe any politician that changes his views after 30 shouldn't be trusted. It's like, Hitler, you were like 40 when you take power. What's going on here? Yeah. You said your views have changed? What's going on? But, no, so...
Well, also, to be fair to Chamberlain in some ways, Chamberlain and Hitler weren't actually enemies.
Yeah.
It's Chamberlain eventually became enemies because he had no other option.
Yeah, well, he had to defend France, I guess, but...
And then, in response to that, the Blitzkrieg happened.
But
not the Blitzkrieg, sorry, the Blitz happened.
But what I have heard, like the appeasement thing where you had that piece of paper,
yeah,
like that was probably actually not a terrible idea, even from a strategic side, because the UK was not ready to fight back.
No.
But
well, so the battle for Britain, it was, I think it took place over 3 nights or 3 days. And it was basically the German it might have only been 1 night, but the German Air Force attacked Britain with a huge amount of bombers and support planes. And the British Air Force fought them off. So when the Germans initiated the battle for Britain of sending all those planes over, they thought they were going to win.
Yeah.
They thought that was going to be the end of the war. They thought the battle for Britain is they would bomb London into oblivion. They'd bomb all the British air fields into oblivion. Yeah. And they would win the war. They'd have peace in Western Europe so they could focus on the Russians.
Yeah.
Because Britain had no army. They had nothing. So he gave him the piece of paper. And then Chamberlain's like, all right, we've given them the piece of paper. Now we need to make an army. We need to make as many planes as we can. We need to make as many tanks as we can. We need to start training up the Royal Air Force. We need to...
I don't know if Chamberlain, that was his plan or that's just what happened.
Yeah.
But it did work out in Britain's favor.
Yeah, because they built their Air Force very fast to defend in the battle.
But before that, when they took the Rhineland, I think, or even maybe a bit earlier, when they remilitarized the Alsace-Lorraine, I think maybe it was. The first expansion Germany did, right? Germany was basically powerless at that point. Yeah. And then that region allowed them to become far more powerful. So if Chamberlain had done something then, it probably would have been very easy to stop Germany.
Yeah.
But, you're like, do I want to get involved in a foreign war, essentially?
Like last time, World War I was not good for Britain.
Yeah, and they're just like...
And they didn't need to be involved in World War I, actually. World War I, Britain was never really invaded.
So Chamberlain was in a terrible position, because he's like, do I want to go down as the guy that got us into a war 10 years after, well, I guess it would have been like 25 years really, but 20 years, it's still in your memory.
Yeah.
Like Chamberlain might have fought in World War I don't know, but it's like, 25 years after World War I, do I want to be the guy that gets us into another war with a superpower, essentially? Like one of the great powers of Europe. It's like, no, just let them take that basically is German land anyways. It's the Alsace-Lorraine, like, it's basically German land. Like, the treaty, and the thing was, a lot of people that weren't Germans thought the treaty was Treaty of Versailles was pretty awful.
A lot of people who weren't Germans, but only the French thought it was fair.
A lot of people were like, this is so bad. Like, what are we doing here? And so they're probably like, you know what, it's fair enough that Germany takes that land back. Like, we'll let it happen. But then that made Germany be powerful enough to take the Rhineland, and then that made Germany powerful enough to invade France, and
Poland and Finland and
then they got
Norway
too big for their britches. But it was it was a hard decision to make, I think. But it was, Hitler said he wanted to do it, so it's kind of like, you should probably read this book if you're trying to deal with this guy, because he wrote it all out. It's a little repetitive and boring in some places, but it's got some.
I mean, the Russians should have seen it coming as well. He literally said he hates communists. In the book.
He thought they would be the end of human civilization, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
He also so when he was so going back to the parents, actually, just briefly there, or before that, so he said you should serve in the military for 2 years. So if you're a guy, after you finish high school, everyone should be required to go to school. You should get rid of the 3 tiers of school, because they had the same as us. So they had primary school, high school, and then secondary school.
Yeah.
Or no, I guess they called it university, basically. So that's silly. Why not just have this main school that gives you so elementary school, the school that gives you the foundation of everything you need, and then have a high school / university if you want to specialize in something.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the point of having these 3 schools? It's you're just giving people knowledge on stuff they're never going to use in their life. You don't need to teach this guy calculus if he's going to be a farmer his whole life, right? Like so I thought that was a bit pointless. Said, but everyone has to go to school. You have to get rid of a whole bunch of subjects, like get rid of rote memorization. Just use stuff that will be useful in their everyday life or is fundamental to the core of the country. So you believe one of the most important things you could teach kids was that race is everything. So you had to tell them like, that's okay.
And you think he'd make a good teacher.
That was the one thing that was, but he was basically like, we have this lie that countries are economic units instead of things to serve an ethnic group.
Yeah.
And so he said, well, he didn't even say ethnic group. He said countries are to serve the race. The whole point of a country is that a bunch of people of the same race got together and said, we want to make our race better.
You know, ethno-nationalism is basically like Bikini River, if you look at the words.
Oh, like it's kind of already an ethnic... Yeah. Well,
it's like it's unnecessary.
It's not because there was one. There's now there's like 5 maybe. There's a country on Earth which doesn't actually have an ethno-nationality, and that's the United States. Yeah. The United States is actually a propositional or ideological nation, so they are not racially based.
We should have a term for them then, rather than everyone else having it.
Well, they're a propositional nation, but they're afraid of ethno-nationalism because that's what they don't want. They were specifically made to not be ethno-nationalists. And so they're the ones that are...
So everyone else has to deal with America's problem.
Well, it's kind of like... So Americans talk about ethno-nationalism the same way trans people talk about cis people, right? Like, it's like, well, everyone else is cis, but I need a term to talk about the other. And so I'm going to call them...
And America's so powerful, it's everyone else's problem.
And so the American... And now there are other countries now that aren't nationalist countries, like Qatar and UAE and Canada to some degree.
Yeah. Well, we'll become soon enough.
Soon we'll be an ethno-national again.
Yeah. If the proposed 60 million Indians...
I don't think that's ever good. Like that's.
But have you heard about that proposal?
Vaguely, I don't know if that's a true thing or what.
It's the Indian minister proposed that Canada to reach its century initiative.
Yeah, just
take 60 million Indians.
Just at once,
and it's so we're at 40 million Canadians.
Yeah.
So what are we just supposed to become India?
And also like the infrastructure, like they would all just die. Like they just freeze. Like there's nothing you can't fit that many people into.
No,
we don't have that sort of.
That's more than doubling our population.
We're a big country, but very little of it is inhabitable.
Yeah, very little that's usable.
Like if you fly over northern BC and the Yukon. Actually, I told you about that explorer, right? Who was like surveying Alaska and the Yukon, and he's like, "This land will never be fully explored. It's impossible. It's horrible to travel here. Like it's just all mountains. It's just pure mountains."
And if you go a little bit east, you hit rocky swamps. Yeah. Like so, very difficult throughout history. There is some terrain that humans have difficulty getting, but they manage it. Like in Britain, the Picts. And stuff, they lived in swamps. Like, there's the whole joke of these men sitting in swamps. They lived in swamps. And there's some people, steppe nomads, they managed to live on rocks. Yeah. It sucks, but they manage it. No people have managed to live in certain parts of Canada, which are cold, rocky swamps.
Yeah. I mean, the Alps in Italy are also like cold, rocky swamps at the base, basically, but nobody lives there.
Yeah, they'd rather live on the mountains than on the cold, rocky swamps.
Yeah. So he believed you had to teach all the kids, this country is here for your race, and you should try to prioritize the survival of your race over everything, even your other principle, which is, like, I think the main thing that led Hitler down the path he did.
Yeah.
But beyond that, he said, you have to get rid of all these classes that you're not going to use, and it should just be foundational stuff that's useful to you, like racial awareness, but also, like...
Basic math,
basic history, not like memorizing dates, but like Germans are a proud nation of whatever, like, you know, whatever is important, like uniquely German. Like, so you tell them like, and then whatever is uniquely French, and you have to actually tell them like, because he said history is useless if you remember a bunch of events that happened without understanding why they happened.
Yeah.
So for instance, it's like, and then Charlemagne conquered France. It's like, why? Or the rest of Europe. It's like, why did he conquer the rest of Europe?
Because he was chosen by God to do so.
And what allowed him to do so? Hitler thought that was really important.
Because he was chosen by God to do so. That's what allowed him.
But it's like, in this battle, what decision did he make that let him win it? Like that sort of thing. Like
he chose to be a Christian man chosen by God. That's what.
Yeah. But like, you know, that sort of thing where it's like, why did this succeed? Why did this fail? So you could look at like, why did the Roman Empire fall? That would be your history class. Not when did it fall, but why.
Yes.
So that was more what he thought. He thought that with all that spare time you had, So physical education, you had 2 hours a week. He said you should have 2 hours a day for your classes. And even after you graduate school, you should be continued to required to have 2 hours.
Japan does that. Not per day, but their companies are obligated to keep you healthy. And so they literally have morning exercises, like for 15, 20, maybe even half an hour. You actually have to go and do exercise in Japan. And if you're too fat, your company can get sued for having an employee that's too fat. And so your
Encouraged to be
your
fit.
company will basically like hire you trainers and dietitians to make you not fat.
He believed that all students should be required to take boxing because he thought it made you confident in yourself, like you're willing to actually stand up to people if you know how to fight. And also it's a great sport physically, like it makes you fit, but also you learn to take a punch and not go down. Like, so you stay up. And so he thought everyone should take boxing. He thought fencing was stupid. It was for rich people to just like
Injure each other.
Yeah, he's like, fencing's stupid. You should get rid of all these like pansy sports that the nobility do, basically. And he believed that, so once you graduate school, you can get 2 certificates. You get one that says, I am actually racially German. So you have to do a little genealogy check, right? So you have to make sure you're actually an Aryan. And then you get a second piece of paper that says, I have done my 2 years of military service. And once you have these 2 pieces of paper, you could say, I am a German citizen and I get to have a say in the politics and the going on of German society, and I get all the benefits that are conferred to German citizens, which might be like, help for childcare or whatever it might be, right? Or like housing. He was a big believer in like everyone needs to have a house, so then you'll have people that are happy and like you. So he's like, just give young families a house. Like, come on, let them live somewhere. So for women, they couldn't. Service wouldn't guarantee citizenship for women in the military. So that's a Nazi thing, right? It's the Heinlein line, but it was actually Hitler. It was his idea. Like, I'm sure he got it from somewhere else, but so he says for women,
certain Heinlein was anti-Nazi.
Yeah, I don't think he was, but the movie that was based Starship Troopers was made to be more Nazi-ish.
Yeah, but I think he actually had like some of his writings are about how.
No, I think he was a libertarian mostly.
Yes.
But he talked about in whatever's farm. It's like basically his like self-insert paradise where this old dirty man goes to the future and then he has like a harem of women and like it's basically like just and he's got this farm where all the people in the future people are like, well, this is now a research facility. It's like, get off my farm. So I think
libertarian writers are funny.
Yeah, but so for women, they could still become citizens, but instead of doing military service. And I think they still had to do all the fitness stuff. And they had to still get the background check on to make sure you're racially pure. But then they, once they got married, they became a citizen. And so all they had to do was get married and become a citizen. And then they should be given, he said, now no one's going to have a child if it's like, oh, you're being a child. So it's like, any woman that has a child and raises them well should be praised with like the utmost. Like she should have her. He was not a sexist at like of all the things he was not a sexist. He was very now he maybe in modern terms he'd be called a sexist because he treated men and women differently. But he thought both were heroes if they upheld their virtues. Right? So I wouldn't call him a sexist. I would just say he thought men and women were different. Which crazy thought, but like I think there's a reason.
Look,
we went to war with him for his madness, but
right here's the biggest proof that men and women are different, right? If men and women weren't different, then men wouldn't want to date women.
Oh, because then they just date men.
Yes,
but then they'd be the same. So yeah, that's good. I like that. I do wonder, like, fetishes, right? Like, just the general concept where you just become attracted to something, and it's like, do you think that it's like inertia? And you're like, okay, I recognize this guy's attractive. And then you have a fetish towards men. And then you get to that point and you're like 99% of the way there. And then you're like, you know what? My life would just be simpler if I was just called myself gay. And then you make that final leap. And then it's like that's my anti. But no, I think I actually have to get to work. So that was like the basics of Hitler's educational reform, I guess. But and also like the foundation of racism didn't make sense to me because he's like, you don't want to have race mixing because that'll cause your society to degenerate. And I'm like,
it'll make your blood explode.
Well, or like I was trying to think about it in different terms, and the best I could think of like was imagine you like people are like having children with koalas, right? Yeah. So you got this kid that's like half koala, and it's like, well, you're just destroying like the human race. If everyone has a half koala kid, we'll just fall apart in the next generation. However, if only a couple people have koala kids, eventually you'll have just normal humans, that have like 6 fingers and they have an advantage. And because Hitler does actually talk about how diversity is an advantage in times of peace.
Yeah.
But you can only have so much diversity. And right now, we are a society that's falling apart and we can't afford diversity. So I think maybe, I'm not sure, he did actually acknowledge that like if you got a bit of that Jewish intelligence and a bit of that, I don't know, what other stereotypes you'd have, that like African strength, let's say, and that First Nation, like nobility, let's say, like the sort of stereotypes of the time.
Yeah.
Like Africans were basically considered to be invincible. Like they were just so sturdy. That's why slavery was black people in the States. It was because they originally had First Nation slaves and they all died. They're like, this is inhumane. We need to get people who are like hardcore and can take it. So they got a bunch of African slaves instead. Because they're like, see, now we're being humane because we have people that are like invincible. But if you like get a couple drops of that in there, I think he would have thought that would improve the race a little bit, maybe. But he mostly thought the Nords were like the perfect. Because I just couldn't figure out how you because obviously like inbreeding would be a problem like horses and dogs at the time. So I'm just trying to figure out why he thought you had to be so pure and what he meant by purity.
Yeah.
But I think he just meant like you can't just go like
he literally saw it as different species like elves, orcs, dwarves, humans.
Yeah. So if you're having like a bunch of half-koala children, you're not making it's not a little bit of diversity. It's you're destroying like the entire culture. However, if only one person's doing it, society won't crumble, and you'll get like a 6-finger child eventually. But it's going to cause a lot of problems for a long time. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of how he was looking at it. But it's hard to
determine what's in the mind of Hitler.
Like if he's
we should have him on the podcast so he can defend his position.
Yeah, like if you're listening, big fan, if you want.
I'm not a fan of losers.
Yeah. I don't think I'm not a fan, like, just because, I don't know, his ideas aren't, I mean, his educational stuff's okay, but, like, most of it's, I don't think he's,
I think that he saw problems in society, and he came up with reasons for why they're happening, and he tried to fix it.
But he abandoned his principles.
He abandoned his principles, but also, there was problems in his society. The things he saw causing it might not be the things causing it.
Yeah.
And his solutions were not good solutions.
Well, I think a lot of them were.
Well, they might have been effective solutions.
Yeah.
But they weren't good solutions.
No, I think even a lot of them were good, but the problem was they were tainted by everything else.
Yeah.
Like his educational reforms, except for like the racial identity thing, right?
Yeah.
But even that, you could say your country is an ethnic enclave, and it should stay that way because otherwise you don't have a country.
I think that is fair.
Yeah.
Actually,
that isn't what he taught, but if you just change it a little bit to be that, then
I think that it's fair that your country can be for your people.
Yeah. And well, Hitler said that the people come first and the country is like created because they are there.
Yes.
And I think that is correct, and that has been the mindset for like the entire world except the States for hundreds of years.
And then because it was Hitler's idea, we're not allowed to have it anymore.
Even though they still do keep it everywhere but the States and like a few of the Arab places.
Yeah. And Israel's fully embraced the idea, ironically.
Yeah. Even though they're kind of they're the only most of the France and Germany, they're still French and German, right? In theory. And then Sweden, Norway, everything. They are all in their homeland.
Not their capitals.
Yeah. And even the First Nations throughout North America, they're in their homeland.
Yeah.
It's just the propositional nations, and then Canada's in this really weird spot because we had, I think it was Trudeau said we're a multicultural society instead of a melting pot. And it's wow, that's so you're not a country, you're just an economic zone or something.
Yeah, no.
You're just a wasteland with laws. Yeah, but so he had a lot of good solutions, but they were his hatred of the Jews on paper, because he dealt with a lot of Jews in his real life. He sold a lot of paintings to Jews and stuff. But and Dan Carlin had a thing about this where he said he thinks Hitler really truly hated the Jews to a level that was completely counterproductive because, like he said with the swords, right? Send them to the Eastern Front.
Yeah.
You have a group of people that's a bit uppity, but they're still your people. Send them to the Eastern Front, then you get a 2-for-1.
Yeah.
You get rid of the people, and also you win the war.
Yeah.
But he said they spent millions upon millions of marks killing the Jews in ways that didn't benefit their country at all. And also they needed a ton of elite guards guarding the camps instead of being on the front lines or something.
And also a huge amount of intelligence specialists wasting their times trying to track down Jewish people. Yeah. The whole joke of the SS going around.
Yeah, it's
isn't
there a war going on?
Is there any Jews in this building? It's these are some of your best intelligence men who are great at tracking people down. They're really logical. They're really creative. They're innovative thinkers.
Shouldn't they be winning you the war or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they
Like you could put them to be commissars in the lines. Or they could be spies.
And then you're also alienating people. Like they did have a few like Wagner's. No, it wasn't Wagner's. Anyway, a few of Hitler's favorite composers.
Yeah.
They had like in-laws that were Jewish. So he said, okay, you're honorary Aryans because you're so good at music. And there was a few scientists. He's like, you're honorary Aryans. I believe he wanted to give Einstein the honorary Aryan title, but Einstein was like, no.
No, I'm gonna go marry my cousin.
I'm gonna go to the States. And because, but imagine like if he hadn't driven away Einstein, right?
Yeah.
Like he could have had nukes.
Yeah.
Like or Oppenheimer too. Like he could have had nukes if he hadn't driven these two guys away.
Yeah.
And it's like you had a couple honorary Aryans, but what if you just said, okay, you know what, we're gonna send the Jews to the front line, but the cool Jews, we're gonna gather them all together and we're gonna have the best army.
Yeah.
Like, and so I think he really did hate the Jews. And I
Yeah,
think,
like there's more practical ways to genocide the people.
yeah, way more. I mean, even what Turkey did, like they can kind of pretend it was an accident.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no, we just told them to go to Armenia. It was fine.
Yeah.
They just all died on the road. It's not our fault.
Yeah.
They just got hungry because we didn't give them any food or anything. You know, that's not our fault. Yeah. Anyways, that's that. I have to go. So.